everyone. Welcome to the 200th-ish episode of ARG Presents. I'm your good friend, your good buddy, your well-seasoned host, Amigo Aaron, joined by a man who, much like the games in today's show, I would refer to as a psycho shooter. Give it up for the Brent.
Aaron, the only way you're well seasoned is if someone threw salt on you.
True. That's sadly it's happened, unfortunately. Listen, they used to happen all the time in wrestling. You blind your opponent with a big wad of salt. How's it going, the Brent?
I'm doing well. For those wondering, the 200th special episode is going to be airing next week. We had to go ahead and get this one out of the way. So we are doing
what a great way to build this one. We got to scoot this one aside.
Yeah, you got to suffer through this one until you get the good stuff. Sorry, that's just the way it works. So, Aaron, what are we looking at this week?
You know, last week, the Brent, we spun the wheel. We made the puzzling deal. It was puzzling to me because I thought this was a handheld. I was wrong, of course, as usual. Our good friend, the Rushi, requested this pie piece, and lo, it came to pass. We'll be looking at, bam, the Psikyo SH2 Arcade board, Brent.
Yes.
Arcade board. Let's have a look at this thing. There you go. Now, listen, we've been around the block a few times, the Brent,
yes,
with the old arcade boards. And I've heard of this outfit once I thought about it because I've seen them listed in categories.
Oh, absolutely.
So
they're super well known.
You didn't know who they were last week when you.
Oh no! I didn't know them by name, but I know their work.
Right. So, what can you tell us? Do you know anything about Psikyo of any interest?
They are world renowned for their incredible shooters. It's something that they've done for years.
Yeah, you know, I'm not good at these, and so I didn't get I didn't know a lot of the stuff they did, but I have heard of a lot of the stuff.
Yeah.
We'll just go over a couple of the titles that they were involved in. They, of course, they did the Strikers 1945 series, which was a sort of a World War II shoot 'em up type of a deal. A lot of these were shoot 'em ups, I should mention. They're very well known for their hot gimmick series, which is a great name, but it's a sort of a sexy mahjong, I believe is what it is. And
fair enough.
Listen, I like the idea of having the hot gimmick. That's pretty cool. I've never heard it quite used like that. They're also known for their Gunbarich shooters. That's another series.
Yes.
The Gunbarich. Now, I had played a couple of these. One thing I can tell you is, from my experience, is that these games are hard. They're real hard, man.
Absolutely.
They're Japanese hard. And so they're not the best for me. Now, do you have a favorite amongst the things you played from them?
Their 1945 stuff's pretty good.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, my shooter days are long behind me.
What, you actually get to a point in your age where you can no longer play them? Is that what you're saying?
Oh yeah, bullet hell shooters. Which I mean, I don't know if you consider 1945 a bullet hell series.
I consider all of them that.
Yeah.
Every shooter I've ever played.
But you know, once your reaction time starts going, you can't quite tap the buttons as fast as you used to. The games become far more difficult, and I gave up shooters probably, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I just don't enjoy them the way I used to. It's kind of ironic, a system known, not to give away what we picked, but a system known for its incredible shooters. We didn't pick a shooter, not a single one.
Yeah, well, and I thought about it. I'll get into that. Let's talk about the company, Psikyo. It's a Psikyo, spelled cool guy style, Brent.
That's it.
You know, it's funny.
Or probably Japanese style.
I was surprised that I couldn't find tons and tons of information about these guys, but I did find a little bit. So, according to, I mean, it was Moby I found this on. They were founded in 92, and they went out in a weird way in 2005. They were in Kyoto, Japan, and the key guy running the joint, the CEO, Shinsuke Nakamura, and they were a company that were sort of ahead of the game. They were formed by a guy who worked at the Video Systems outfit who worked on the Aero Fighter series. Now, we actually did own an Aero Fighter. I did. I owned an Aero Fighters cabinet, which I believe we turned into a vertical MAME, and now it's sitting at Evil Matt's house as we speak. That cabinet. In fact, I think we sold Aero Fighters. I believe it might have been Aero Fighters 2 that we had, Brent. It was either 1 or 2.
Yeah, it was one of them.
You could see how Aero Fighters would have fit right alongside the rest of the Psikyo catalog. Psikyo was acquired by X-Knots in 2002. And in 2003, it was reported they were shutting down. And then, but X-Knots said, no, that's not true. We're going to keep them going, man. And so they kept releasing games on the Psikyo label, but they were not done by the same team that worked at Psikyo. This is all
right
according to the web. You can take this with a grain of salt. And so, long story short, they're no longer with us. But as these things go, and this is something I did learn this week, the Brent, and you may not know this. You know, the Switch and modern consoles have given a second life to a lot of these old Japanese shooters, and it turns out the Psikyo shooters are very, very, very well respected. Which
absolutely,
and so much. I mean, by a modern audience. And so this has been some of the games we're going to be talking about, and some of the games that we've been seeing and mentioning are actually available to purchase on like Steam or in like one of the many in the many stores for the Xbox or the PlayStation.
Yeah,
the
Switch. Virtual download stores.
So it's kind of neat. And I read a whole bunch of people talking about these guys, talking about how great their stuff is. It does make one wonder, you know, where were these? I guess they just weren't born yet, so they were way ahead of their time. Now, the board we're looking at today, in particular, the Psikyo SH2 board, Brent, it's funny how little I could find on this. I had a heck of a time finding anything on it.
Yeah, there wasn't much.
So this is not like a CPS sort of a deal. This is more of a board set that with a ROM swap, as far as I can tell. So I don't think it's a multiple board set like we're used to. I think this is just a board that they just had put different games in.
Yeah,
it was a jam,
and not like Neo Geo style. This was actually chip swap.
Yeah, this is a JAMA board. I saw a lot of collectors talking about these things. They could get quite expensive, and so it's a JAMA board. It ran at 28.6 megahertz. The sound in it was a Yamaha FM 27.8B. And they had a decent amount of games on here. I'm looking. So here's the known game list. I'm just going to run through it real quick. It's not a ton. There's a game called The Fallen Angels, which I'll talk about that later too. Dragon Blaze, Gunbarich, Gunbird 2, Lode Runner the Dig Fight, Mahjong G Taste, Quiz the Idol, Hot Debut, Soul Divide, Space Bomber, Strikers 1945 2 and 3, and Taizan Hot Gimmick. Taizan Hot Gimmick 3, 4, Taizan Hot Gimmick Integral, and Taizan Hot Gimmick Karakuken. And then lastly, the Tetris the Absolute, the Grandmasters 2, and Tetris the Absolute, the Grandmasters 2 Plus. A couple Tetris games in there. Now, one of the things
they very much this set of people, they did a lot of, we're going to make the game and then we're going to upgrade the game. And I'll get into that a little bit with my game.
Yeah.
But even from that list, you heard a lot of sequels. You heard a lot of games that sound like they were just slight upgrades. That was something this board had a lot of.
Yeah. I want to mention, and it's funny, I was doing some research, and again, this is something I'll get into more in my game. But one of the things Psikyo did was they had a cast of characters. Believe it, and keep in mind that a lot of their games are shooters. They had a cast of characters that would reappear in a lot of their games. In fact, their cast of characters would even appear in other companies' games.
Yeah.
There's a game for the Dreamcast. I think it's a Hot Gimmick. Pardon me. I don't want to get sued. It's a Hot Gimmick game and it's got the chick that's in my game who's also in the Gunbird games. Like she was like one of their well-traveled chicks that would get around to all these games. So I do think that's kind of cool, and the fact that they were in there with a bunch of Street Fighter guys, it shows you that they're at least somewhere in Japan. I can only assume that they cornered the market on sexy mahjong, and Capcom was like, "Hey, we get the Street Fighters in that, but we don't have to make the game. We'll just kind of put them in there." So, I don't know.
Yeah, license them out. Yeah.
I don't want to know what, for example, Dawsim or E-Honda are doing in the sexy game. But and I don't know how to play mahjong. You don't know how to play either, do you? You know how to play mahjong?
At one time, I had a basic understanding, but I haven't messed with it for so long. I couldn't jump back into it.
I'm looking in the list of all the stuff these guys did. They did a lot of console stuff. They worked on the PlayStations, your Saturns, PS2, the Dreamcast. By the way, if you're interested, the game I was talking about is Tazon Net Gimmick, Capcom and Psikyo All-Stars Mahjong on the Dreamcast. So good luck putting that on the front cover, by the way. It's a lot to go through. But as I look over the list of all the games that they were involved in here, really the ones that stand out are the Striker series, the Zero Gunner, the Gunbirds, and those are the ones that I recall. And those Tetris games, I do recall those because I did play some of those. So a game, like I said, a company I wasn't super familiar with, and they did a bunch of games that I'm not super familiar with, but I guess we know more than we did, the Brent.
That's it.
We're working on it. So with all that said, it was our duty to pick a couple games out of that little list I read off. I guess I'll lead the charge this week, Brent, as I try to pronounce my game repeatedly. Now, the original game that I chose was a game that was called Doraku Tensei, The Fallen Angels. This was the only fighting game that I could find amongst all these other games, and I thought, and I will admit this, it looked like it looked depressing, if I'm honest. I mean, I looked at the video for it. I'm like, this doesn't look that good. I mean, the graphics were okay. It just looks dark, and the characters just looked lame, and the fighting looked like garbage. I was like, man, I guess I'll pick this. And then Brent was like, don't pick that. I can't play that. I'm like, okay. So I went back to the drawing board to pick another game that he could play, and I found one.
Well, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure that also that game wasn't actually released, was it?
Oh yeah, it was released. Because
okay.
I saw people talk. So get this, before we get into it, I saw a bunch of collectors talking about Psikyo's games, and they would get these weird boards that had the etching on the chips like scraped off and stuff written in pen and stuff. And so after just going down the rabbit hole, it turns out that what was happening was Psikyo at the factory there, if they had a game that didn't sell that good, they'd bring it back in, and they would literally scrape off all the markings and stuff and just put new games in there and ship it back out. They'd rewire stuff, to make it work. So I guess they were trying to...
Chip crisis, man. It's happening forever.
This was in the 90s, you idiot. There was a chip crisis.
Oh, there was chip crisis.
No, this was cheap. This is my kind of company. They were cutting costs, brother. You get some geek to go in there with a razor blade, you file that stuff down. That's the way you do it. Anyway,
it can't be cheaper.
So I didn't play The Fallen Angels. I went ahead and played a game that I never heard of, but that's what I wanted to do. And so the game I picked was called Gunbarich. Gunbarich. I think that's the way you pronounce it.
That's what we're going with, huh?
Well, how would you say it?
I wouldn't. I'd say Gunby.
You wouldn't say anything about it at all?
That's Gunby.
Okay, fair enough. So Gunbarich, again, developed and published by Psikyo, released in 2001. Brother.
Sorry, I've got the Gunbarich.
Looks like you got fleas. Anyways, this is sort of a Arkanoid clone, like a real wacky one. So get this. The first thing I tried to find out was on the old Gunbarich. Okay, like how do you control this? Okay, because think about an Arkanoid game. Okay, we'll get to the particulars, but I want to talk about the cabinet.
Okay.
So how would you control an Arkanoid game in the arcade? Spinner, right? Almost always a spinner. What are you shaking your head for?
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I mean, but why would you shake your head? Clearly, the spinner's what used to control Arkanoid. So anyway,
man, when have you played a spinner? When have you played a spinner game in the 90s?
Listen, okay, I'm done with you. Anyway, Gunbarich. Apparently, these Psikyo SH2 boards were made and to run in these candy cabs. They are JAMA board. JAMA is a Japanese arcade manufacturer standard for arcade boards. So you can use the same type of board, all different sorts of games. So anyway, I noticed when I was playing Gunbarich, I'm like, hey, this controls pretty good with the joystick, when so few of these sorts of games do. And so I looked it up, and in fact, this game strangely released, and its control method was an 8-way joystick. Now, you'd probably ask yourself, why would you need an 8-way joystick for this game? Because you only go back and forth. Well, that's because you don't need one, but that's what was in the cabinets, because these cabinets are sort of all generic, right?
Yep.
Good luck finding anything, cabinet art, marquees, because they didn't have any of that stuff. That's I had a heck of a time finding any sort of cabinet that was running this, but I did find a couple. Again, this was released in 2001. This has gotten ported over to the Nintendo Switch. There's a Windows port. There's a Steam version as well. So if you wanted to play this, you could. And apparently, it has drawn some attention here recently because of the fun factor in it. So this is what I would call a Japanese, almost like, I don't want to say chibi, but a cutish game that's based on the Arkanoid gameplay element. In this game, the story at least, the two main characters are Marion, a witch girl. She's a witch girl. That appears in many other Psycho games, as I mentioned, and Gruden, a pirate kid. Those are the two main characters you get to pick from, all right? They both have stats, okay? So Marion, the little witch, has a power of 1, speed of 2, and magic of 3, and Gruden, the pirate boy, has a power of 3, a speed of 1, and a magic of 2. Now, what's that mean? Well, I'll explain.
Very little.
No, it don't. No, that's not true. It means a lot. So, you know, when you're sitting down and you're playing some of your old Arkanoid, the old Revenge of Doe, and you get the ball up into the stuff, and stuff falls down, it makes you have lasers, makes your gimmick larger, the whole 9 yards. Well, this is a similar system where you knock the ball up into the blocks, and occasionally magical spells will fall down that will increase the size or the abilities of of the thing you're using to bat the ball around. Now, since the Marion has a greater magic rating, she will get more access to these than Gruden will. Also, the speed obviously means she can move the platform back and forth quicker than Gruden. But,
very slightly quicker.
Right. Gruden, on the other hand, has more power when he hits the ball up into the air versus what she's got, and that does affect how the ball hits the blocks, and more importantly, in this case, how your boss battles are affected because you get that more power. So, you pick your character. By the way, you always pick the chick, brother. That's the way I do it.
She's the better character.
Yeah. And then, well, I don't know. we'll get into that.
Okay.
And then the game starts. So this game is set in stages. And it'll be like 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, and then so forth. And as you go through the game, the first thing you're going to notice is that you don't have a paddle like you do in Arkanoid or so many games, Pong, Breakout. What you've got is a pair of like pinball flippers at the bottom of the screen. Okay, now when you hit the button, the pinball flippers flip. Now you don't have to hit the button to get them to. You don't have to hit the button to make the ball hit them and go anywhere. If you don't hit the button, the ball just hits your flippers and just goes up in the air anyway. But if you hit the button and you flip the ball, you can the ball will go up a lot harder. Okay, so now here's a key element to this game. Think Arkanoid. I mean, because let's face it, these Arkanoid games are mostly the same, and this one doesn't deviate too far from the program. But there are a few key points that are way different. For one of the magical spells you'll get is where you get like a ton of balls at once on the screen. Okay, in Arkanoid, for example, as long as you keep one of them balls going, you're golden. In this game, you're not golden. You've got a ball that's like a certain color, pink. If you don't hit the pink ball, you're screwed. You lose. Right? You always have to keep your ball in play. Right? The rest of the balls just come and go. Now, so that's one key element. Second key element to this is using the flippers. If you tag the ball as hard as you can and hit it, it's going to go flying. But if you hit it at something that it hits a target that's relatively close to you, it's going to come flying back at you quicker than it would if you hadn't hit the flippers. And so you can hose yourself real easily by hitting the flippers every time. You kind of want to hold off on hitting the flippers until you got a real clear shot, or you've cleared out most of the bottom elements of the play field. Because if you don't, you'll go out real quick. I mean, it's the same basic deal as Arkanoid. You're in sort of a cylindrical chamber. That's not true. A rectangular chamber, and you're not cylindrical. And there's shapes at the top of the screen that are blocks. But also, you're going to see other stuff. There's creatures running around, and they do spice things up as the game goes on. One of the early things you do after you get off the first wave of levels is you'll have creatures that come out, and the creatures have the ability to shoot back at you, and they shoot these orange bullets or small clouds. And if you get hit by these, it doesn't kill you. It paralyzes you for a few minutes, and you have to go crazy 8 bonkers on the joystick and buttons to get yourself freed from being paralyzed. Now, the good thing is you can actually shoot these back at the opponent, the little orange cloud balls, and do damage with those. So that was an interesting element. Another element that's introduced, I think, when you get to the third wave is you'll come across guys that you'll shoot, and they'll catch your ball and teleport to somewhere else on the screen and shoot it back at you. And so you've got to run around like an idiot. I managed to get to about 3, 4, I think. I got to the third boss on this, so I did pretty well. I should say this does have boss battles. I think the boss battles they're nothing spectacular. I mean, they're okay. It's good to have them. You'll fight, the usual weird Japanese cutesy stuff. There's the one that comes to mind we just saw was a teddy bear that has a Santa hat on and gifts rotating around it. But there's also a guy that has these. There's a guy that comes out that has all these hands and spins around the circle. That's the guy that got me, by the way. I don't know if you saw him, the Brent.
Yeah, I did.
This does have a continue feature, so which I tried not to use, but if you want to put more money in, you can just keep right on trucking. It's the typical sort of game there. It's a very colorful game. I mean, it looks pretty. There's a lot going on in the background, so much so that sometimes that can be distracting. I noticed with the witch girl that you can actually. She gets so much magic that you can't tell what's happening. So you're grabbing stuff, and you've got no idea what you're getting. Now, I should mention this while I'm here, that there are 6 different items you can pick up that will affect the way the game goes. These are the magical items that drop down from the ceiling. So the red one has an H on it. It says hyper. This is a power up basically. If you get one called wide, which is blue, has a W in it, and guess what? The flippers become bigger, and they also give you extra power because they're bigger flippers. If you get the one that's green that has an M in it, this splits the packs into multiple blue packs. It's hard to explain this, but you have to kind of see it. Then you've got a speed down, which is S. You can also get an extra man, which is a 1-up. And then there's something, I never saw this one, called the Great Magic. And it's pink with a question mark in it, and all the docs say on it is, when you get this, something incredible happens. Did you ever get that one?
I never saw that one either.
I didn't see it either. The sound on this is great. I thought the music was real catchy. I mean, it's one thing that you'll see when you load this up. This wasn't programmed by a bunch of hacks, okay? These are people that are experts in their field of graphics, displaying graphics, color, presenting a palette in a pleasing way, presenting the music in a pleasing way. I mean, every part of this was very classy, very well done, very polished. Now, with that said, would I rather play this than like any of a number Arkanoid clones? The answer is no, I would not. I think the pinball thing was okay. I didn't think it was a huge deal. But I just don't like the way the screen is set up. There's a lot going on. I don't like the enemies, if I'm honest. I don't like that. It's a very difficult game. I mean, the enemies are always shooting those paralyzation things down, and it gets real tough. And there's nothing less fun than trying to sit there and play this hard game when you can't move, which is very annoying. It happens all the time. I was letting balls pass left and right. Also, this may stun you, but a joystick is not the preferred method for playing a game like this. Now, I could have hooked this up to my mouse if I wanted to, but that's not the way you played it in the arcade. That's why I checked. I wanted to try to simulate the experience in the arcade. Now, this game falls into the category of a game of convenience. When you're trying to play the hand you're dealt in the arcade, but you're also trying to have a game that doesn't necessarily fit into the criteria that you've set for yourself with a joystick instead of a spinner, or even a trackball to some degree would have helped. And I can't imagine getting very far in a game like this with a joystick controller. Brent, what did you think of this one? Had you played this before, and what are your thoughts?
I had not played this before, and as you know, and I'm sure most people know, I've certainly not kept it a secret. I hate Arkanoid games. I hate breakout type games. And thankfully, this is not an Arkanoid type game. Do you go up and hit bricks and try to clear the stage? Yes, but here's the major difference. You have tremendous ball control. I can't believe either you didn't realize this or I don't know why you'd ever fail to mention this.
All right.
When you hit the ball with the flippers, you control the spin of the ball and can shift it left or right depending on how long you hold the joystick. So I'm talking about if you have a bit of a clear space at the bottom and you hit the flipper and hold left really hard, you can 90-degree turn the ball. That's how much control you have, which makes these games fun. Also, the game is not about clearing the bricks. Yes, that's the objective.
I was gonna say, want to bet?
No, but here's the thing. Every board has a 1-minute timer. 1 minute. If you don't clear the board in 1 minute, you fail. And the reason why that's not an issue, and you didn't even mention it.
Yeah, I never had that happen once.
And the reason why is you have such good ball control, and the stages are designed in a way that you are not on a stage longer than a minute. Sometimes you'll collect time power-ups to give you extended time, but who cares? You don't really need it. The thing that makes this game fun is you feel like you have control. Yes, it's chaotic. There's a lot of things going on. This is by far my absolute new favorite Arkanoid type game. There was never a time when I was like, man, I need one more brick. I can't get the stupid ball to go where I want it. Just go over there, hit the brick. This is stupid. I never felt that way. And it's the first time ever in an Arkanoid game that I didn't feel that way.
You had better control than I did. I mean, yes, you could bend the old ball to do what you want, but generally I was dodging stuff and moving around so much that I didn't have a whole lot of time to plan my shot.
No. You're wrong. You're wrong.
I'm wrong. I'm me. I did what I did.
Well, being you is wrong because you have such good ball control. I mean, yes, there are definitely times when things are so chaotic that you're just flipping it up to get from point A to point B. But it is not most of the time. You can control the ball without any power-ups. It's just something built into the game.
I understand
and because of that, you could always stay in control of the situation. Yes, there are some bosses that will throw down a bunch of those shock orbs, but you hit them right back. It's like an extra ball. The only thing that sucks is when they would go past you, they explode, and if you run into the little smoke cloud they leave, it will stun you. But the game, it's this is so hard to explain. I hated that you compared this to Arkanoid. I know you had to because it was a breakout type game.
Are you kidding me?
But it's not. It really isn't. Because you have such ball control, it's more about controlling the situation than it is getting the bricks. Hitting the bricks is never a challenge. It's never a difficult thing in the game because you have such amazing control. Something else to mention with the power-ups. The H power-up, which is the red power-up, is awesome because when you hit the ball, it will power through bricks.
Yeah.
If you've got a line of like 4 or 5 bricks on a row, that sucks in Arkanoid because you're just sitting there pinging them up and down, up and down, up and down, and it gets so boring. But when you've got the H power up, it just bam pushes all the way through it. You destroy all the bricks in one time. You're swerving and spinning the ball to go left and right. The bosses are fun. The bosses in Arkanoid are always crap because you're just throwing the ball up there, throwing the ball up there. You're not doing anything. Man, in this game, you're taking the projectiles, you're throwing them back at the guys. It's tremendously fun. This game really blew my mind at how entertaining and enjoyable it was when I loaded it up and it was like, oh gosh, it's going to be another one of these. And it wasn't. It wasn't. It was so much fun. The colors are popping on this.
They do pop.
It is.
And the sound is real good.
The sound's pretty good. I appreciated the graphics more than I appreciated the sound. When there is one brick left, right? And there are non-destroyable bricks in the game.
Yes.
So it can, I mean, it's not confusing, but I guess it could be confusing. It points out the last one. It like has a big flashing arrow and stuff.
One. It's what it says on it.
So
yeah,
everything I hate about Arkanoid games is solved in this one title.
Oh,
I cannot believe the stick being the control. Mwah, perfect.
No,
I agree with you. In most games like this, you would want a spinner or something.
Yeah.
This, you couldn't use a spinner because you want to have that extra control with the joystick.
You could use a spinner.
No, it's not designed for that.
You could use a spinner. I would rather use a spinner. Listen, I appreciate that you got into this. That's cool. I don't think it's garbage, but I didn't use the controlling of the ball as much as you did, clearly.
Oh my gosh, that's the whole game.
I was running amok. There was so much going on that I didn't have a whole lot of time. I mean, yes, it is convenient when you're looking to get the inside, but I kind of like the Arkanoid. You know, maybe it's a generation thing. I like this kind of the slow gameplay in Arkanoid. This was a little bit too pressure cooker for me. I wasn't used to it, and if I'm honest. And also, really, when they brought out those stun balls, that really made it too hard for me. It may just be an ability.
Just hit them back.
Well, yeah, they're all over the map, and you run into them. It may just be that you are more able at this game than I was, and you enjoyed it more. But hey, listen, I'm not saying it's a crap game. I think it's a decent game. It's just if I was going to pick one, this is not the Arkanoid clone I would play, but it's still pretty good.
This. Oh my gosh, this is so superior to Arkanoid. It's unbelievable.
Well, I said Arkanoid clone. There's a million Arkanoid clones out there.
There are. The difference between the characters are very minor.
Well, no, I don't agree with that. The
girl gets a lot of power ups, but the extra power for the guy, for the bosses, it's not that important.
Well,
at least not for the bosses I fought.
For me, you were getting so much. There was so much stuff with the witch girl. The guy doesn't get as much, and so because sometimes you'll pick up stuff you don't necessarily want or understand, and you wonder what's happening. Like, I would like to have the bigger flippers. I didn't want the other thing, but you got it. Now, it happens in Arkanoid, but this is a lot worse with the witch girl. And I noticed that the boy, he didn't get nearly as much. He still got
not nearly as many, yeah.
So,
one last thing I want to add in here. I'm guessing it's a power-up, and it might be the one we never thought we got. But there's a power-up where your little mascot or your little teammate, the girl's is a bunny. I think the guy's is like a parrot.
Yeah.
There's a power-up that will appear and show you where the ball is going to leave the screen. That was a very confusing power-up for me for the longest time because it always appears right above where your flippers are, and I thought I was trying to hit it. But what it was trying to tell you is where the ball is going to leave so you can line up better. So if anyone's out there confused about that, that's what that is.
I couldn't find how many. I'm not 100% sure how many levels this has. I mean, it's got tons. It's got at least, I'd say at least 40.
And it's 1-2 boss. 1-2 boss. So everything is so snappy. It's so fast. It's so smooth.
I don't like it that.
I love it.
For me. Well, I'm surprised given your history. Two things I want to mention before we take this to the house. Again, I mentioned you're a witch or a pirate. You're going through this as a witch anyway to like learn how to cast spells to be a better wizard. That's the gimmick. Yeah. Another thing is the cute little girl in this Marion. Something else that Psikyo had a habit of doing. And of course, this happens when you've got sexy mahjong games to make. It's like all the characters, all the girl characters in all their games, no matter how cute, how many teddy bears they're holding, or how young they look, they're all going to appear nude in many of the hot topic games and sort of hot gimmick games. Those games work a little blue. Chances are no Americans will never see that. But it did strike me as odd that the little witch girl goes nasty in some of these other games.
That's a cultural thing.
Well, I suppose so. I looked this up on eBay, Brent. Okay. Now, again, you're talking, and I had trouble. All these ads were from Japan. So some of these said board, and some said board with instrument. Okay, I don't know what that means. I'm sure it's a translation thing. The boards, the Japanese PCB for this game was going for, they were asking $867. That's for the PCB. If you wanted the PCB with instrument, okay, whatever that means, those they were asking $1,200. Now, I will say that these seemed plentiful, so I'm guessing that there's a guy in Japan that has a warehouse full of these things that's unloading them. So if you're interested in checking out this particular game, you can give it a whirl. Believe it or not, I found some critical reviews of this thing, Brent.
Well, yeah, because it's out in modern consoles now.
Yeah, I did, and these are modern reviews. Nintendo Life, which is a Switch magazine, gives this game an 80%. I love this one. Video Chums. It's a great name. They also are a Nintendo Switch magazine. They give this 6.4 out of 10, and Switch Player gives it 2.5 out of 5, 50%.
That's a little low. I think this is a game that you should at least pick up and play if you like or don't like Arkanoid style games, because it's different enough that it might turn a corner for you. Would I buy the arcade port of this? No. Come on.
I think if you have a Switch, all right, that you could turn sideways, tate
or on
mode.
Steam.
But I mean, a Switch I think would be if you're going to play it, I think the Switch would probably be the way to go. Probably use that little analog controller, put that sucker in tate mode or whatever, go to work. That's probably the way I'd do her. But it's available on Steam. So check her out. That was Gunbarich. An interesting game. The concept of putting pinball flippers in place of the usual block at the bottom was different. I would have done a little bit more with it, but that's just me. I would like to have seen some pinball type levels stuck in it, but I guess that's also probably cultural. But still, I thought it was pretty interesting. So there you go, Gunbarich. Now, with all that said, Brent, you had to choose from another one of these fine games. Which one did you come up with this week?
Well, when we are looking at a board that has some incredibly awesome shooters, we, of course, both avoided picking a shooter.
Well, mine's sort of shootery.
No.
There's shooting in it. There's tons of shooting.
No. I picked Lode Runner, the Dig Fight.
The Dig Fight. I dig it.
Now, Lode Runner, holy cow, what a history. Aaron, do you know the very first game that Lode Runner was sort of made for?
I believe, was it on the Apple?
It was on the Apple. Yeah. That was the official release.
I remember. But this would have been like, 79, 80, something like that.
Oh, no, not that far back.
Is it?
83.
Okay, I was close.
But the guy, I'm going to tell you a little story about Lode Runner because I found this interesting.
Okay, go ahead. Story time with the Brent.
There in the late 80s, or the late 70s, early 80s, there was a guy named James Bratsenso.
That name stinks.
Bratsenso. And he was out the arcade and played a little game called Space Panic. And of course, everyone knows that Lode Runner was kind of mirrored off of Space Panic. But he went and told his friend about Space Panic. The guy didn't play it. He was just hearing the description of it. And he said, you know what? That sounds awesome. I'm going to make a cool game based on this. And he got to work on his Commodore PET and created a game called Suicide. And it was just using text-based graphics.
It's a bad name.
And the dude had very, very limited programming knowledge. So much so that he couldn't even make like pre-designed levels. He made a loose editor that you could kind of put a board together and then play it. And then if you turned it off, that was it. So the level editor for Lode Runner was designed and implemented before actual levels were. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So this guy, he goes to school at the University of Washington in '81. He met a few other students. He said, "Hey, look at this game I've got." And this was when Donkey Kong was just hitting the scene, and everyone was impressed by that. And they were like, "Oh, you know what? Let's work on this a little bit." And they changed it from Suicide to Kong. And it wasn't a Donkey Kong game. It was still working off that Lode Runner concept. So they worked on that and they played with it a little bit just on their off hours. And then in 1982, one of the guys that was working harder with all this, named Smith, recreated the game in assembly language and put it on the Apple II and called it Miner. So another name change. And he worked with it and played with it. And he said, "You know what? This is kind of good. I'm going to go and put this out there to a publisher and see what they say." And their direct response was, "Thank you for submitting your game concept. Unfortunately, it does not fit within our product line." So he got the big rejection letter. And he's like, "You know what? No, this is good. I have something here." And that was from Protoburn, who eventually did publish the game. But he said, "I've got something here. I'm going to go back. I'm going to tighten up a few things. I'm going to tighten up the graphics, and I'm going to represent this." And he presented it to 4 publishers, and every single publisher wanted to buy the game. So with just a few tweaks and a little bit of time, it became the must-have game for some of these publishers. I mean, everyone he submitted it to wanted it. So it eventually released for the Apple II and the Atari and the VIC-20 and the Commodore 64 and the IBM PC and literally everything else. I had no idea that Lode Runner. I knew Lode Runner was an old game, right? And I knew it was released on a lot of systems. But holy cow, there's like 30 Lode Runner games. It spans multiple publishers. It spans multiple developers, multiple consoles and computers, multiple time ranges. You're talking, this started in '83 was the release of the first game. And there is a planned game coming out this year in 2022. So it is, I remember we talked last week how games have to evolve to stay relevant. Lode Runner didn't evolve. Yes, it dabbled in isometric views and it dabbled in 3D, but ultimately it always came back to the same core concept of a man running around levels, digging holes, collecting gold or items, and running up and down ladders and climbing ropes. So the arcade release on this is kind of crazy because the initial arcade release was in 1984. And this, of course, is not the one we're looking at, but it also released in '85, '86, and then all of a sudden comes out in 2000, Lode Runner, The Dig Fight, which is really crazy because the game's been sitting on the shelf for 15 years. Why bring it back now? I don't know.
Yeah.
I tried to find out why. Yeah, I tried to find out why they just decided to rebirth the property. Now, there, of course, were
money.
Several, maybe there were several home games in between this time on a bunch of different systems, but this was his first return to the arcade. The gimmick in this Lode Runner is you can play 2-player, and you can play either cooperative or you can play competitive. And unfortunately, it's not as easy as just choosing one from the menu. It's actually a dip switch inside the board of the game.
Oh, geez.
So if your arcade was set up to be competitive and you wanted to play cooperative, well, tough. You can't. It's just not something you can do. The game follows the tried and true formula. You have an 8-way joystick for movement. You have 2 buttons: dig to the left, dig to the right. This is a version where you can fill in the holes that you've dug. So if you hit the button over an empty hole, it will fill in the hole instead of making a hole. You're collecting gold. The stages are all static. Some of these games have scrolling stages. That's not this one. It's a static stage. Collect all the gold, get on the ladder, leave, you're done. Incredibly easy concept. And I did not realize, Aaron, and you might have realized this, how popular these games have been over time as platform puzzlers. It's something that, yes, it's a platform puzzler. There's no doubt about that. But when I'm thinking about platform puzzlers, this game never comes to my mind. And I don't know why, because it's the heart of it. I would even call the Boulder Dash, the one where you're pushing the boulders around.
Yeah.
I see more of that as a platform puzzler than I do this, and I don't know why, because this clearly is a platform puzzler. So the arcade has multiple difficulty levels, from beginner all the way. I think the upper end is like super expert, and depending on what level you pick is how many stages you get to go through before the game just ends. For example, the beginner stages, you get 6 stages to go through, and the super expert, I believe, is 12. I'm not good enough to do super expert, so I really stayed in the beginner intermediate area. This game doesn't have a life system, which is kind of unique for these type of games. Instead, you have a set amount of time to play the game, and you can either collect time power-ups, which will add to your time counter, gives you, I think, an additional 30 seconds, or every time you complete the stage, it gives you some more time. If you die, it does subtract some time from your overall stance, but it's pretty fair about it. It usually only takes you down 30 to 45 seconds, and you start with like 5 minutes. So you feel like you can experiment and not be too horribly punished. Of course, if you hit start, it will restart the level if you've dug yourself into a hole and can't die or whatever. It has enemies, just like pretty much all the other Lode Runner games. Sometimes the enemies are used to fight, get in your way. Other times they're used as a way of completing a goal. Sometimes you need the enemy to walk across their head or to get a piece of gold that you can't reach on your own. So the puzzle concepts on this go pretty deep. Of course, then you've also got all the logical dig puzzles where you have to dig in a certain pattern to get the item that you're trying to get. I typically do not like these type of games. I guess Lode Runner is above my mental capacity, or just not a good fit for my mental capacity. However, I did find that the beginning levels of this were easy enough for me to complete. I got all the way through the beginning levels, no problem. The intermediate ones, I got most of the way through, and then super expert and stuff, give me a break, didn't have a prayer. Aaron, what is your history with Lode Runner games, and how do you think this one stacked up versus all the rest?
Well, you mentioned Space Panic. I was around when that was out. Like I was saying earlier on the chat, I actually played that clone of that on the Coco before I'd even heard of Lode Runner. Honestly, I've never liked Lode Runner because I thought it was just really hard. It's funny. This is the second time Lode Runner's made an appearance on this show. You probably didn't know that. I picked Lode Runner, a Hyper Lode Runner for the Game Boy, way back in Volume 7 with Boat. where we recovered the Game Boy. And
Yes.
so I knew from that episode that Lode Runner is one of these games that was big in Japan. Like, it was huge in Japan. There's some of these puzzle games that just got over, and this is one. I mean, this was huge in Japan. So I'm not that surprised that someone licensed it to make a new version, because they've made plenty of versions of it over there. By the way, Hyper Lode Runner, never played that. I'll just say it was ruthlessly hard, and the Game Boy just didn't do a very good job on that one. So, with all that said, I had almost a Brent-like experience with this Lode Runner. I never have liked Lode Runner, and I've had access to multiple versions of it. But this actually was the first one I've played that I really enjoyed. I don't know why. Maybe they've got I also played, mine was in Japanese. And so I didn't get to tinker around with the settings or anything. So I had to kind of guess. So I think I started in the basic levels and stuff. But this game, actually, you've got a chance right out of the gate. You're not instantly murdered. And the fact that they got rid of the live system and used the timer, I actually like. And what they do is they hold the extra time out there like a carrot. You don't have to get it, but if you want it, it's there. And so that actually adds an element to the game that you wouldn't normally find in one of these games. I like the enemies. They're they'll come at you, but you could sort of trick them, but they're not idiots, which I like that. I like the way it felt. It played at a speed that I enjoyed. It wasn't super fast. The board layout. One of the things I always have a problem with Lode Runner is just the controls and the layout of the board stuff. And for whatever reason, maybe just because this is an arcade game, not a computer, the board layout worked for me. Felt like I had a better handle on my guy. Like I could plan ahead. I could see the board, and scope out how I wanted to play stuff. I like the fact that your goal is there. I mean, I know this sounds like, well, that's the way it is in all of them, but for whatever reason, I clicked better with this one than I have on the previous ones. Again, it's interesting that this would be released from the Gunbird people. That's sort of an anomaly.
Well, on that board, yeah.
Well, no, just in general, because I mean, if you look at their library of games, and I believe this is the only Lode Runner they did, it just seems kind of goofy, but I like it. I like the speed that your guy fires. There's more room for error in this than there are in the other ones, which I like. The timer thing is actually, I mean, listen, if you said, you've got a set amount of time in this game, that'd piss me off. But in this game, I actually prefer that, because what they did with it, to me, made the game more playable. Because I agree. You could screw up and still keep on trucking. You know what I mean? And I appreciated that. When you picked Lode Runner, I thought to myself, what a geek. He had all these shooters to choose from, and he chose Lode Runner. But I can tell you, and I wanted to mention this earlier, so I'll get into it now. I tried many of the shooters, the Strikers, 1945, the Gunbird 3. They were so hard, and I couldn't get anywhere. I mean, yes, you may mock me now. I could not get anywhere, and which is why I didn't choose one of the shooting games. And when you picked this, you actually did me a favor, because I had a good time playing this, and I had a decent chance of getting somewhere, which was fun. I mean, you could play this as, unlike, say, a Gunbird, you could sit down and play this for 5 minutes on a quarter, maybe. And if you're really good, you can play longer.
Absolutely.
So, because if you think about the concept of this sort of game in the arcade, this could, they had to do something, because you could go out there and get killed instantly, with the old version. So putting in the timer, and by the way, the timer's fair. Like that's something else. I don't think it screwed you. I think the timer was a fair timer that lets you, it doesn't give you practically no time and then laugh when you put in more money. You get a fair amount of game time. So,
and when an enemy hits you, it doesn't kill you or end your round. Right, it just stuns you. The only way to die, quote unquote, is to hit the reset button or dig yourself into a hole and the hole fills up.
Right. And I will say that the guys do all the stuff you would expect. They follow you. They'll grab the gold and they'll move it around and do that kind of crap. They hunt in packs if you get far enough in. So you've got to. They're kind of dumb. They're reminding me sort of like the monsters in Pac-Man. Like, they're not total idiots, but they're not like relentless killing machines. They're somewhere in the
you're
middle.
never going to get in a situation where you're like, man, I don't know how to get past this guy.
Yeah.
You can always manipulate them.
And the levels are, they're cunningly designed because they have to be, because it's Lode Runner. You can't go out there and hack together some levels. But I think they're to me, the levels I tried, I think I would have tried, I couldn't tell it was Japanese, but I assume I tried the basic as well. I thought it was a lot of fun. And so, surprisingly, I'm going to give this the high sign. And you trust me, no one's more surprised than me, because I'm not a fan of these games. But I really, really enjoyed this one. Maybe it was because I played so many of those incredibly difficult shooters that I was feeling utterly inadequate as a game player. So at least I feel like, well, maybe I'm just a smart game player, not necessarily the twitchy type. So, yeah,
now,
I liked it.
Something I would be amiss if I did not mention. The sound design for this game is atrociously bad.
Well,
the music,
I'd say it's middling. How about that? It's not as good as my game.
No. The sound, the music, the sound design, which really I feel Lode Runner needs a powerful driving soundtrack. This is not. It's incredibly repetitive.
Yeah, we didn't get to try I didn't get to try the 2-player version at all. That sounds like an added benefit that we haven't even got to really broach. That'd be pretty cool, I think.
Yeah, I think cooperative on this could be fun. I think competitive on this would just be kind of annoying.
It would make you hurt the guy next to you, is what it would do.
Yeah. So I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, like we both said, these aren't typically our games, but this is a version of the game that I could see myself playing and not wanting to jump off a cliff. So I certainly would say
not a strong endorsement there.
I would certainly say if you are a Lode Runner fan, this is a must play.
Oh yeah.
And this version was only available in arcades in Japan.
Yeah, this never got released in the States.
So it is something that you are going to have to emulate or pay 750 big ones to purchase the PCB. Now this should fit and work in any JAMA cabinet.
Yeah.
So if you're a huge Lode Runner fan, that is an option.
This would be fun to have in an arcade. It's like something different, to have in there. A 2-player Lode Runner. Listen, I'm talking myself into it here. That's not the worst idea.
And something else to mention. Shoot, I forgot what I was going to say now. The versions of this.
Yeah.
Sorry. I was said before that they seem to update a lot of their games.
Yeah.
There is a version A and a version B of this game. Okay.
Yeah.
Version A is an incomplete game. From an arcade owner's perspective, the menus that you usually use to set up an arcade game are woefully inadequate. And that is one of the reasons why they put out a version B. However, to the boon of the player, version B has different boards. So if you want the full Lode Runner experience, you have to get both boards to get all of the levels.
I didn't see version A even available at my mystery sites to get. They all had version B.
Well, I think that is because like I said, they screwed up. Basically.
Yeah.
But it's reported to have, because I played version B as well, but it's reported to have different levels than version A.
Yeah.
So there you go.
I will say, the funny thing about this is, here's Lode Runner, an American property. And this game never made it to the States, but Gunbarich, which is the game I played, did have a state release, and you get it in English. It's funny that how it worked. But I guess at this point, they didn't figure anyone in the States wanted to play this game because it was well known as a computer game.
Well, Aaron, this year, new Lode Runner coming out. So
there you go.
Something to think about.
And what'd you say this was going for? $795?
$750 is where I saw it at.
Man. I'm glad we're out of the arcade business. So as we run this down here, the Brent, what were your, looking over the list of the games that were available on the Psikyo SH2? What do you think? I mean, is this a winner? Should you go out and pick some of these up?
This is not going to earn top billing for my arcade board list. But that said, the games I did play for it, and I played probably half a dozen before really focusing on the two that we picked.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
It has the best version of Arkanoid I've ever played. So,
Even though it's not Arkanoid. Hey, it's got the best load.
What can you say about that?
Arcade do. So yeah, we ringingly endorse the Psikyo. Avoid all shooting. Just play the other games. Brent, let's hope we have a more mainstream selection this week as we spin the wheel. Here we go.
Oh.
Now, so this week, Brent, we've added as our retro rewind piece the venerable VIC-20. We love the VIC-20. And as our new play piece, we've selected the Apple II GS, a selection from the Buckster, Buck Owens. Buck Owens, Brent.
Now, something that needs to be mentioned as you prepare the wheel for spinning, this will not be next week's show. This show will actually, for this spin, will actually take place February 4th,
That's right.
2022.
Next week, a special show.
Next week will be our special 200 anniversary show, so be sure to tune in for that.
Very good. Any thoughts? And do you have a preference on this one, Brent?
I'm still rooting, hooting, shooting. Burger Games.
Ask you dumb things. Here we go. Let's get this. There we go. There we go. Now we're ready. Here we go, everybody. Place your bets now. Round and round.
That was a horrible spin. Dreadful.
Off. And the winner is Sega Master System Brazil exclusives. Holy smokes. Pajako, what have you done?
Cool. Absolutely cool.
The Sega
I've actually
Master
been looking
System.
forward to this one.
You didn't know this was on there.
Yes, I absolutely did. Yeah.
The Sega Master System Brazil exclusives. The Sega Master System was the King Dong of Brazil. It was like
Still
the
is,
Blanca
baby.
Down there. And it was around forever. And this will be interesting. I don't think I've seen these get a whole lot of coverage. So this will be a lot of fun. Nice selection of Psikyo. By the way, we're always accepting new pie piece entries. We get some occasionally. I got Folds sent me one, and a few other people. So please submit your pie piece ideas or just general commentary or comments on the show to argpresents@mail.com, the most generic web page you can think of. Hey, a little bit of house cleaning before we take this thing down. I hope everyone can join me, Amigo Aaron, this upcoming Friday for a specific date. We're looking at the 21st of January 2022. It will be the once a month now Conversations from the Dark Side. A little bit outside our norm. This week's topic will be, UFO encounters. Have you seen a UFO? I bet you have. You never know, right? So join us, myself and Rob Flack O'Hara, my partner in crime, as we take a look at UFO encounters and Conversations from the Dark Side. Now, 2 weeks coming up on the 29th of January 2022, Brent. It will go down. These don't happen like the Olympics. These are a rare occurrence. We will gather the International Computer Club, and it will be in session. So far, we've got 6 big presenters, Brent. 6, brother.
Oh, very nice.
And they're going to be laying down the tech, old school. If you are interested in presenting something, there's still time. Head over to the International Computer Club Discord area, and there's a document right there. You can sign right up. Sign-up sheet, Brent, and you're good to go. Have I missed anything? Of course, we talked about next week's special show, which will be a lot of fun, and we're looking forward to that one. So that'll be next week.
And then 2 weeks from today, we will be looking at Brazil exclusives.
Yep, that'll be fun. That'll be good. So let's take it to the house, the Brent. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us. We appreciate you guys, all you guys in the chat, all of our Twitch followers, all of our Patreons, all of our good buddies. Thanks a lot, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we will catch you guys on the flip side. Sayonara.
Thanks for joining us today. Special thanks to Duncan Styles for our vector style graphic and Bart Pitt for our amazing music. Would you like to help keep ARG spinning? You can do so at patreon.com/ARGpresents. Just like these fine folks: Mario Ramey, Z9K9, Jerry Dennington, John Dykeman, Retroalgy, Airshack, Texas Foosballer, Sundown, Oram, Super Tech Boy, David Terrence, Mr. B, Roushie, Graham W. Vetke, Dave Velociraptor, Bernhard Lucas, Steve Rasmussen, Anthony Jarvis, Bitter Blitter, Pajako 6502, Kevin Bean, Andy Jones, Andy Craig, Rob Black O'Hara, Jason Warrens, Mitsuyama, Chris Foles, Frodo NL, The Slow North, John Schaller, The On Collective, Gary Heather, Terry Howard, Olaf Hope, and Rollo. You can join us live every Sunday, 10 a.m. EDT on Twitch. Hope to see you there.